Hello, this YouTube video is here to help Year 10 and Year 11 students that are studying the fantastic Power and Conflict anthology poems with AQA. And today, what I want to do is to help students structure compelling answers in comparison. So without any more time wasting, let's get straight in and add to this. Right, okay. So straight away, what I'm going to do here is to look at the question that had come up in, I think it was 2019, and it was this question: compare how poets present the ways that people are affected by war in War Photographer and in one other poem from Power and Conflict. Now, of course, what this particular poem is about, and the other poem that we choose from our selection, is critical. So I've chosen Remains to be the comparison one, and it came really from compare how the poets present the ways that people are affected by war. This is the key element, and we must always link our answers to this in War Photographer, one other poem. Now, the challenge for this particular question is that you are able to see the War Photographer poem, and the poem that you choose has to be recalled from memory, and in this case Remains. But I will show Remains as well, just to remind students of what they should be looking for when they are learning the poems in their school and trying to understand what was conveyed in those poems. So War Photographer by Carol Ann Duffy is a very strong, quite graphic poem. So when you read this, you will see there are lots of things that we can look at. The way the poem starts is quite actually relaxed. It's not high pace. So it's kind of looking at things at the beginning and looking at the end, as you do with any poem. So it starts off with things like this, where the war photographer is in a dark room alone, and likens it to a church as well. So when we're looking at all these things, we have to try and collate and work out what is happening. Now, just for the sake of this, we're going to look at how the Remains poem is there. The first thing you notice about Remains is the title is ambiguous with Remains as well. It's one that has several meanings. Remains, it could mean remains in the mind. It could be remains as in something that's wasted, like the remains of a house. In this case, unfortunately, it could be related to the remains of the looter that is shot. Now, that was by Simon Armitage. And this one starts with something that's quite action-packed. So when we're looking at these, the War Photographer, we have the advantage of being able to look at the quotations, the way the writer puts it together. But going back to the question, we must always remember we're looking at how poets present the ways that people are affected by war. So when that particular question is then telling us straight away, we've got to look at the methods that are used, and those are the things that we have to include within our answer. And that's the trick. It's not just picking out a whole remit of quotes, etc., and trying to explain the impact. It's also to pick out different methods that are used in order to create that result. So let's move on further. So what I've done after this is created a structure that I think students would welcome, to be honest. So I've kind of put, look, paragraph one, get your introduction in. But firstly, before we go on to that, it's also important to understand that this is a 30-mark question. Now, you're going to be able to balance that between the two poems. Now, there are several different thoughts about how students should go about comparing these two poems. Now, you can actually write paragraphs about one particular poem and then follow it up with paragraphs about the other poem. However, I think for students, to make them really go into the comparison well and not miss out anything, they really should write in quite a formal way. They've got to use lots of different ways of looking at evidence and looking at how things are done. And the way to do that is to have a very, very simple structure that will help them in. So in the introduction, which is paragraph 1, you will notice that both of the particular poems that we're comparing are being mentioned. So I'll just read this one out. Both Carol Ann Duffy in War Photographer and Simon Armitage in Remains show how people are affected by war, especially through psychological trauma. While War Photographer focuses on someone who witnesses war, Remains focuses on a soldier who takes part in it. However, both poets show that war causes long-lasting emotional pain and should not be glorified. Now, that actually leads us in to our 4 processes that we've already mentioned. War Photographer, then we mentioned Remains. So then when we're looking at the comparison, my feeling is that we should always write a paragraph which has a comparison between the 2 particular poems. So this one, I start off in War Photographer. Duffy shows how the photographer is haunted by what he has seen. The phrase "spools of suffering" set out in ordered rows suggests that pain and death are constant and organized. The word suffering emphasizes how innocent people are harmed by war. Now, after I've done that, I immediately go into the fact that we are looking at a comparison. So similarly, in Remains, the soldier is haunted by memories of killing the looter. The repeated phrase, possibly armed, possibly not, shows his uncertainty and guilt in both poems. Repetition shows that memories of war cannot be forgotten. So I'm already beginning to create a formal approach, working through each poem's like for like as we go through. Paragraph 3, I then kind of switch it around and make sure that the first comment that is made is with Remains. So in Remains, Armitage shows how war damages the soldier's mind. The soldier says, the memory stays on my mind, which suggests that trauma is permanent. Violent imagery such as blood shadow stays on the street makes the memory seem vivid and disturbing. Likewise, in War Photographer, the photographer experiences flashbacks when developing photographs showing that he cannot escape what he witnessed. Therefore, both poets show that war destroys peace of mind, whether someone witnesses violence or takes part in it. So in that one, we've picked out individual quotations that reflect on violent imagery and memories, flashbacks involve such structural features. And whilst we're putting in these methods, we are getting the marks that we require to get this answer done and to get the good marks. So the next one is about the society and structure comparison. So this is where we're looking at both poets, the way they reflect on the structure of the poems. Both poets also criticize society's reaction to war. In War Photographer, the editor will only pick out 5 of 6 paragraphs, suggesting that the media controls what people see and that the public is distant from suffering. In contrast, again, a structural element saying contrast is again helping get more marks. Remains shows the soldier dealing with guilt alone, suggesting that society does not fully understand the effects of war on soldiers. And then I actually state structurally, Duffy uses regular stanzas to suggest control and order, while Armitage uses irregular structure. So we've got another structural element there where the form of the poems are very different. And the one in Armitage, we mentioned structure and enjambment to reflect the soldier's confused thoughts. This highlights the different ways war affects people. And then to finish this off, we create a conclusion. So we've put enough in these comparisons to show how both writers are showing the effects of war on people. And that is the key element. In conclusion, both War Photographer and Remains show that war has devastating psychological effects. Duffy focuses on the emotional pain of witnessing suffering, while Armitage focuses on guilt from violence. Overall, both poets challenge the idea that war is heroic and instead present it as something that leaves lasting mental scars. So this is a top level answer that will help you, but it's a way it was structured is formal and simplistic in its structure. So these are the things that you can take away, and it's a simple memory plan for you. You only need to remember this pattern: an introduction, both poems, the main idea, war photographer remains comparison, remains and war photographer comparison, society and structure comparison, and conclusion, overall message there. So when we look at that particular poem, what I've tried to show is that the most important thing is to structure in a balanced way with both of the poems. This is the biggest challenge of all, and a lot of students get muddled up in comparing them both. But if you do it on a like-to-like basis, working through, always look at the beginning of both poems and always look at the end of both poems, and you'll find there will be similarities or differences there. Then the form and the structure that is used reflects the kind of the poem as well, which when we see it starts off in war photographer in after the cycle of the war photographer's travels come back, is now developing the film and and what he's taken as photographs, which is quite shocking. But in the Remains, we get a high adrenaline, fast moving piece of action, and then it goes into a second half. So happen because both of the poets want to create the effects that war has. And it's a message, it's a moral message, it's a psychological challenge on people. You know, both of the war photographer and the soldier have inner conflict in dealing with their trauma that they've had to go through. Anyway, I hope that has helped. Please subscribe to my channel if you think this was any use to you, and you can check out more videos as well. Thank you very much for your time.